Episode 14, Disarm the Time Bomb. Keith Kepler is stunned after Yor Forger defeats Kurt and orders the German Shepherd to kill her. The dog snarls at Yor, who does the same, scaring it and Anya Forger. After the dog runs away, onlookers gather around the alleyway and Keith decides to escape. He tries to pull the white dog with him, who refuses to budge, so Keith kicks him and runs. Yor is about to give chase, but stays with Anya to ask what happened. Anya explains the plot with the bomb dogs and how the white dog saved her. After Yor searches the dog for explosives, Anya apologizes for running away. Yor is glad Anya is safe and decides to report the incident to the police, asking Anya what she remembers. While Yor makes her call, Anya sees the dog looking into the future and reads his mind. She witnesses the first vision, which changes with Lloyd Forger disappearing. She then sees another premonition where a clock tower rings, followed by an explosion in the city that kills Lloyd. Then, a news broadcast announces that the terrorists succeeded in their assassination plot, with a war bound to happen. Anya is shocked by this and wonders what to do. She thinks about telling Yor but does not want to expose her or the dog's powers. Anya decides to run off with the dog to save Lloyd. She tells Yor that she needs to bring Lloyd toilet paper before rushing off. Yor wraps up the call and runs after her. Yor's report reaches Wise and Handler, who use the information to capture the remaining members except Keith, who sees this and decides to carry out the assassination himself. The Wise agents attempt to interrogate the members about Keith's location and the bomb locations, but they refuse to answer. Handler enters the room to interrogate the students. One of them says they want a war to exterminate Westalis and for Ostanian supremacy, and Handler responds by kicking him in the face. She chastises the students for their ignorance and points a gun at one of them, asking if they learned nothing of war at their university. Elsewhere, Keith attaches a bomb to the German Shepherd and tells it to go after Minister Brantz. Keith believes now that his Plan B positions are compromised. The clock tower will be swarmed with security. However, he decides to use this to his advantage so he can lure them into a trap and eliminate them. As this happens, Handler sends out Wise agents to each of the 4 potential locations they have for Keith, with Twilight and 2 other agents heading to position B1, which is at the clock tower. After Handler gives out the orders, Twilight agrees with her viewpoint on war, saying he is done with it. Meanwhile, Anya and the white dog rush to the clock tower to get there before Lloyd and save his life. Anya and the dog arrive at the clock tower plaza, where Anya tries to figure out when the explosion will happen. Anya tries to remember the positions of the clock hands in the vision, but realizes that she cannot tell time. She asks a nearby man when the clock tower bell will ring, and he says it will be in less than 30 minutes. Suddenly, the dog picks up Keith's scent and drags Anya around a corner to hide. The German Shepherd smells and spots the two, but does not alert Keith. Before driving off, Keith thinks about how he hopes the bomb he planted works and rationalizes the potential casualties as honorable sacrifices to his cause. Having heard all this, Anya and the dog rush to the bomb, located inside a room. Anya reaches for the doorknob, but the dog barks at her to stop, reminding her that opening it would trigger the explosion. Anya climbs through a small window by the door and prepares to disarm the bomb. As she does this, she realizes this is nothing like her cartoons, as all the wires are black. She notices some ketchup on a table and decides to use it to leave a warning about the bomb for Lloyd to find before leaving. When Twilight and the other agents arrive, they are confused by the warning. The older agent decides to ignore the message and reaches for the doorknob. Anya waits anxiously outside, hoping Lloyd got her message. The time of the explosion arrives, and the white dog's premonition returns to a future with Lloyd alive and well. Back inside, Twilight stops the agent from opening the door, wary of the message. He uses a glass shard to peer through the window and sees the bomb. They wonder who left the message, but decide to leave it to the State Security Service, who has also learned of this hideout and is on their way. They change plans to head to where Minister Brantz is, as Keith might attack him directly. At Brantz's location, he is informed by his secretary that he will be expected at the reception hall shortly, and that there is a contingent from Ostania's foreign ministry here to escort him. He complains about not being able to go anywhere in this country without being watched by the state, and how useless Wise is for not having taken care of the terrorists. As he says this, a Wise agent enters the room. Later, Brantz leaves the building and is greeted by Yuri Breyer, who says his car will be leading the escort. After Yuri leaves, Brantz decides that he will drive himself and splits off from the escort, to the shock of Yuri and everyone else. Watching from afar, Keith gives chase. Meanwhile, the real Brantz is still inside the building with his secretary. It is then revealed that Lloyd is disguised as Brantz, as he arrived at the hotel earlier to take his clothes as part of his disguise. Brantz complains about being mugged to Handler, who explains that they needed it to lure out the enemy. Twilight makes several turns, confusing Keith as they drive in circles. The two other Wise agents follow close behind, providing information on Keith. Lloyd heads towards the river, something Keith appreciates as it's away from the crowds. The agents catch up with Keith and start shooting at him. However, Keith slams his car into theirs before throwing a stick-hand grenade at them and flipping them over. The Wise agent warns Twilight that Keith still has explosives and is coming his way. Keith catches up to the minister's car and sees it abandoned. He then sees Twilight running off and sends the German Shepherd after him. Lloyd pulls out his gun to shoot at the dog, but it moves too quickly for him to shoot. Twilight keeps running and uses parkour to get over a wall. Keith is shocked by his movement, as the real Brantz is 60 years old. The dog continues pursuing Twilight, and they end up in an alleyway. Twilight pulls out his gun and removes his mask, stating it is time to end this.